Hello, I'm Sarah Coates and this is Global Eye, your window to the world straight from Tel Aviv. Now, we're going to be travelling around the globe for the next hour together to give you every story you need to know. Well, on tonight's show, we'll bring you voices from every side of the Russia-Ukraine crisis as Russia's declaration of separatist republics isn't easing fears but instead stoking more concern. Well, the most powerful people in America are being drawn into the conflict. Even rapper Cardi B will tell you what she has to say. And could Russia be stripped of hosting the UEFA Champions League final? We're live with a sports journalist. But before we get into any of that, let's start right here in Israel. What's the buzz? These are today's most trending stories. Well, Israel's diplomatic staff in Ukraine have transferred from Kyiv to Lviv over fears of an all-out Russian invasion. Well, an embassy spokesperson says the move is mainly to provide consular services for Israelis in the country who want to get out, with officials noting that flights out of Ukraine are more full than they've ever been, with more than 50% of seats filled. Well, imagine going to the beach only to stumble across a 1,500-year-old artifact. Well, that's exactly what happened to two police officers in the southern Israeli city of Ashdod, uncovering what is believed to be a pillar from the remains of a Byzantine-era church. Well, the pair then reporting the find to Israel's Antiquities Authority, who say it was likely unearthed due to winter storms. Well, it seems a controversial plan to expand a national park onto church-owned lands in East Jerusalem is off the table amid growing anger from church leaders who slammed the plan as a premeditated attack on Christians in the Holy Land. Well, the project was set to get preliminary approval at the beginning of next month, but has since been shelved, the Parks Authority spokesperson saying, despite it still being up on the website, it's been scrapped. Now, the news coming as tensions in the Holy Land remain high, with continued demonstrations in the flashpoint area of Sheikh Jarrah as Palestinian families are facing eviction from their homes to make way for Israelis. Moving now to the Pegasus spyware scandal, and the official team in charge of investigating the bombshell allegations that Israel's police force used it against top officials and civilians says it simply didn't happen. Well, Ellie Hockenberg with the findings and, most importantly, what's next?
A storm in a teacup. The scandalous revelation about alleged police use of spyware against Israeli citizens seems to be all wrong. Israeli Internal Security Minister Omer Balev welcomed the conclusions of the team that examined allegations regarding the police use of NSO's Pegasus software, saying they pose a, quote, resounding acquittal of the Israel police and the uniformed personnel.
There are many people that need to bow their heads and apologize to Israel's police officers and their families. More than 30,000 public servants whose reputations were dragged through the mud over every podium in recent weeks.
The special team, headed by the Deputy Attorney General and included former Mossad members and other senior experts, concluded there's no evidence that, despite claims, NSO's Pegasus spyware was used without the needed judicial approval. This in contradiction to a series of reports by Israel's Kalkalist newspaper claiming 26 public figures had their phone hacked illegally, including 3 former government ministry director generals, prominent businessmen, and media figures. The team found, as police already admitted, that approval was given to hack into the phones of 3 of the 26 people, and only 1 of the hacks actually worked. And the main question now, what's next? Police are expected to demand the Attorney General to allow them to return and use this spyware to counter criminal activities after the use of the system had been stopped since the publications. But there's also criticism over the investigations coming either from those whose phones were allegedly hacked or by the opposition Likud party headed by former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying, quote, the interrogators interrogated the interrogators and said that everything's fine. Only a state commission of inquiry can find out the truth. And speaking of Netanyahu, the Jerusalem District Court, where the former premier's corruption cases are being heard, will discuss next week the implications of the findings on the trial itself after it was discovered the NSO's software was indeed activated on the device of state witness Shlomo Filber. And so this storm in the teacup might still create some ripples.
All right, so how does one grow food in the desert? Here's a solution.
For decades, Israeli farmers have plowed their trade on this prime real estate, the shores of the Sea of Galilee. But what we'll show you on this farm today are fruits and vegetables that can be grown anywhere in the Middle East and in any climate. Ariel Global Links is one of the companies perfecting the best technology to do this, hydroponic farming, grown in these greenhouses, a completely controlled environment.
As you can see, this is the hydroponic. This is the pipe. In 1,000 square meters, I can grow between 8,000 to 9,000 maximum lettuce. In same size of the area with hydroponic, I can do 40,000. It's times 4 more than what you can grow in a soil.
The key is these water tubes. Other than the earth that's holding this little plant together that will grow, of course, in the future, it's only using water and the chemicals that are added in the water for its growth. But in a water-scarce Middle East, how is water-based growth optimal? It is if you can recycle it.
We have a cleaning system, we have water supply system, water bag system, so everything is working in one scenario.
And it can all be controlled, how else but through an app. We have a smart house these days and a smart greenhouse.
Yeah, this is a smart greenhouse.
Less resources, more production, and tastier. Here we go. Freshly grown kohlrabi in a hydroponic farm. Very fresh. Very good. There's nothing like eating it straight out of the ground, I would say. But this isn't the ground. And that's good, because some ground is not suitable for agriculture, like the desert environment in the Gulf.
The hydroponic, this is the answer for them. We can grow it in any climate.
And that's what they're doing, constructing hydroponic farms in the desert outside Ras Al Khaimah, an hour's drive north of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Here you can see the stark contrast between the country's spectacular skyscrapers and its agricultural infrastructure. But that's changing.
For this project, it's coming almost 2,000 square meter of area is coming. So about 300 different types of parts is coming. So we need to assemble. No need to fabricate anything extra. After completing first project, I think it will be very easy for us to like that gain experience in these things, and we can convey this information and this experience to others also.
We teach the people from the country to work. We take from Israel the computers, everything automatic.
And making this a truly regional partnership is the expertise of Muhammad Adnan Hussein, an agricultural engineer from Syria, working for an Israeli company.
I want to starting a new relation, and I'm the first man who assist to make this project for all the area. I'm starting with that, and I will do it inshallah.
In the Emirates, at least, there will be more projects, and not just in agriculture. According to Sheikh Abu Amr Humaid Al-Nuaimi from Ras Al Khaimah, who is financing the construction.
I decided to be part of this project because this hydroponic system of agriculture is the best worldwide. Of course, there will be future business between us and Israel, because our leadership is very wise and very brave, and they study all the aspect of this partnership between United Arab Emirates and Israel, and they know that it is the best for the region.
Growing plants, growing partnerships for a better future from the ground, or rather above the ground, up.
Short break, but after this, rapper Cardi B is weighing into the Russia-Ukraine crisis, stirring up millions of people on Twitter. And would you eat these erotic pastries? I personally know a few people who would, but why are the bakers in this Italian patisserie so hell-bent on pumping out penises? We'll have both those stories and plenty more coming right up. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to the I-24 News Desk.
Now more details on a developing story.
Breaking news at this hour.
It is history in the making.
When news breaks in the Middle East and around the world, our team of experienced journalists are here, around the clock.
To keep you up to date with the news of the day.
Where it happens, when it happens.
Stay tuned and stay informed.
Every day on the hour.
The heart of the new Middle East beats on I-24 News.
Breaking news again, but there's always more to the story, especially here in the Middle East.
What's really going on in the region? Well, unless you're actually here, you can't really tell.
Join us here at the beating heart of the new Middle East
to get a true perspective on what's really going on.
We're on the inside of political and religious passions in Jerusalem, breaking down the financial trends shaping the global economy, giving you key context, not just headlines, with the stories from Israel that touch the U.S. and those across the region with impact far beyond its borders. Catch the rundown where the Middle East meets the world.
Welcome back. Well, at least 16 people are dead and a number of others are in a critical condition after an explosive-laden drone was launched at the King Abdullah Airport in the Saudi city of Jizan near the border with Yemen. Well, Saudi authorities say they believe it originated from Sana's airport in Yemen's capital. Well, it's the second airport attack in less than 2 weeks, which is being pinned on the Iran-aligned Houthi rebels. Well, a female World Cup official will go on trial next week where she could be sentenced to up to 7 years jail and 100 lashes for extramarital sex after reporting she was raped in Qatar. Well, the 28-year-old, who was in the Gulf nation to help organise the tournament, told authorities that a colleague broke into her apartment and threatened to kill her before raping her, leaving her covered in bruises. Well, she says when she reported the horrific incident, she was accused of having an affair out of wedlock with her lawyers and telling her one way of avoiding conviction would be to marry her alleged attacker or to flee the country. Well, Israel's border with Lebanon has been relatively quiet for the past few years, but it's the one that concerns Israel the most, with the ongoing threat of Hezbollah in the north. Well, Israeli paratroopers need to be constantly prepared for any scenario, carrying out drills to ready themselves for battle. Our correspondent Jonathan Regev has more.
Jumping off the helicopter deep inside enemy territory in a difficult landscape, and minutes later engaging in heavy firefight. This is what may await the IDF in a future war with Hezbollah, and this is what the 890 Battalion of the Paratrooper Brigade has been training for over the past few weeks.
The drill involved everything. It began with a long and difficult hike that trained our soldiers in carrying heavy weights. It also included urban warfare and open area warfare. We had cooperation with the Air Force, the Armored Corps, and artillery. The drill depicted in a very good way what we are expected to meet in the next war. And I think we learned a lot from it.
The border with Lebanon has been almost completely quiet for more than 15 years now, but recent events may indicate that long peaceful period may be coming to an end. Just this past week, a Hezbollah UAV crossed into Israel and flew back unharmed into Lebanon, despite Israeli attempts to take it down. A day before that, a drone also flew into Israel, this time taken down just as it crossed the border. Last summer, the Iranian-backed Lebanese organization fired some 20 rockets to northern Israel, the heaviest fire in years. The next war may be just around the corner. The paratroopers are aware of that and confident in their abilities, while also respecting those of the enemy.
They cannot be underestimated, and we know they're training all the time. But they are not equal to us, not even close. We believe we are stronger in our values and our force, but this is no reason to underestimate them. It would be a grave mistake to do that.
And while on the way to the drill, from the air, you realize why this is so important. Just below are the civilian communities of northern Israel, those which rely on the army to let them lead a safe life here, despite the short distance from the border.
Every time we meet the residents here, we get a lot of support from them. There's a lot of appreciation from the civilian community here. And after such meetings, we understand even better why it is that we do what we do. I'm sure that when they see the paratroopers training, it gives them a safe feeling.
The drill is now over. This battalion is already dealing with other arenas, but they're ready to head up north and fight whenever they're needed.
And we are moving on to the United States. These are today's most trending stories. An absolutely incredible story coming out of the US with a dog reunited with her owners after being missing for, wait for it, 12 years. Incredible, right? Well, the story unfolding when someone witnessed a cruel person dumping an old dog out of a car in California before contacting police. Well, Zoe was then taken to a vet to be scanned for a chip where they discovered she'd been listed as missing since 2010. Well, her owners are clearly over the moon after resigning themselves to the fact that their pet was dead, showing all of us that we should never give up hope on our loved ones. Well, rapper Cardi B is back at it, weighing into politics and the Russia-Ukraine crisis, offering up her thoughts to her 28 million Twitter followers.
I'm really not on NATO's side. I'm really not in Russian side. I'm actually in the citizen side because at the end of the day, the world is having a crisis right now. There's inflation not only in America, but everywhere in the world. And I really wish that all world leaders right now just really come with a logical conclusion.
Oh, thanks, Cardi. We didn't realise there's a crisis. Well, on a more serious note, President Joe Biden has just announced he's going to impose a range of strong sanctions on Moscow, saying Russia has undeniably acted against Ukraine. Let's take a listen to what those measures will entail.
This is the beginning of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, as he indicated and asked permission to be able to do from his Duma. So let's begin to... I'm going to begin to impose sanctions in response far beyond the steps we and our allies and partners implemented in 2014. And if Russia goes further with this invasion, we stand prepared to go further as with sanctions. Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors? This is a flagrant violation of international law and demands a firm response from the international community. We're implementing full blocking sanctions on two large Russian financial institutions, VEB and their military bank. We're implementing comprehensive sanctions on Russia's sovereign debt. That means we've cut off Russia's government from Western financing. It can no longer raise money from the West and cannot trade in its new debt on our markets or European markets either. Starting tomorrow and continuing in the days ahead, we'll also impose sanctions on Russia's elites and their family members. They share in the corrupt gains of the Kremlin policies and should share in the pain as well. And because of Russia's actions, we've worked with Germany to ensure Nord Stream 2 will not, as I promised, will not move forward. As Russia contemplates its next move, we have our next move prepared as well. Russia will pay an even steeper price if it continues its aggression, including additional sanctions. The United States will continue to provide defensive assistance to Ukraine in the meantime, and will continue to reinforce and reassure our NATO allies. Today, in response to Russia's admission that it will not withdraw its forces from Belarus, I have authorized additional movements of U.S. forces and equipment already stationed in Europe to strengthen our Baltic allies, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Let me be clear, these are totally defensive moves on our part. We have no intention of fighting Russia. We want to send an unmistakable message, though, that the United States, together with our allies, will defend every inch of NATO territory and abide by the commitments we made to NATO.
Let's now bring in senior U.S. correspondent Mike Wagenheim, who joins us live from New York. Good evening, Mike. Look, we just heard a little bit from President Biden there, but what are some other main points that he brought up?
Well, listen, he's trying to go now for level one. It's the first tranche of sanctions, as the White House put it. It's basically, here's our first punch. Here's our first jab. You go further, we're going to punch harder. Now, some of these sanctions experts saying, especially when it comes to the banks, not really going to have much of an effect. VB is essentially a slush fund for the Russian elites. Anyway, the U.S. hasn't gone after the state-owned banks, the big banks that would affect the Russian populace, which, could hurt Putin's popularity, could hurt the popularity for this particular invasion. The elites, yeah, that's another step that the Biden administration was looking at, going after this lifestyle of luxury that these Russian elites are able to lead outside of Russia, in America, in Europe. You take that away, you take basically the pleasure of being an oligarch away, then maybe those oligarchs will start to put pressure on Putin as well. So these are the first steps. They didn't go as far as the Americans and the Europeans as cutting off Russia from the dollar or other European currency. They still have some bullets left in the gun here. They say if Putin goes further, they're willing to go further as well. It seems to be a tit for tat right now. Again, this is not deterrence per se. This is punishment. Others wanted deterrence in advance of a possible invasion. This just wasn't in the White House's plans.
And Mike, tell me what happened then at this emergency session at the UN Security Council.
Yeah, late last night, Ukraine called for an emergency session of the 15-member body. Russia, which has the presidency of the council right now, said we should handle this behind closed doors. Other members of the council said, no, we need to have this out in the open. This really turned into a lot of symbolism over substance because Russia has a veto there at the UN, so they can veto any action. But a lot of countries on the council, just about everybody outside of Russia and China, going to bat here for Ukraine. Let's give a listen to a few of these ambassadors last night.
And Russia's President Vladimir Putin announced that Russia will recognize as independent states the so-called DPR and LPR regions, the sovereign territory of Ukraine, an area controlled by Russia's proxies since 2014. He has since announced that he will place Russian troops in these regions. He calls them peacekeepers. This is nonsense. We know what they really are.
We remain open to diplomacy for a diplomatic solution. However, allowing a new bloodbath in Donbass is something we do not intend to do. Unfortunately, we are forced to note the extremely negative role played in all of this by our Western colleagues, led by the USA.
Russia's clear attack on Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity is unprovoked. It is an attack on Ukraine's status as a UN member state. It violates a basic principle of international law, and it defies our charter.
We are committed to a peaceful and diplomatic path, and we will stay firmly on it. We are on our land. We are not afraid of anything or anyone. We owe nothing to anyone, and we will not give away anything to anyone. There should be no doubts whatsoever.
Уважаемые коллеги, distinguished colleagues, I would like to call upon our Western colleagues to think twice, to set emotions to one side and not to make the situation worse. No one other than you can hold back the militaristic plans of Kyiv and force it to stop the shelling and provocations against the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics, which in these new conditions could have extremely dangerous consequences.
The United Nations is sick. That's a matter of fact. is being hit by the virus spread by the Kremlin. Will it succumb to this virus? It is in the hands of the membership.
All right, Mike Wagenheim there. Thank you for coming on, and we're all waiting to see what happens next. All right, we're taking you out for a short break, but when we come back, the controversial Nord Stream 2 pipeline deal has been put on ice as the fallout continues over the crisis. So what's it mean for Europe? We'll have all of that and plenty more coming right up. Stay there.
Discover I-24 News Radio. Now you can listen to I-24 News anywhere, anytime, for free. I-24 News Radio is the audio live stream of the television network with world headlines every 30 minutes starting from 7 a.m. Tune in for top news, magazines editions while in the car, in your office. Join us from your smartphone, tablet, or desktop to stay connected in the Middle East and around the world. Don't wait any longer. Head to our website or mobile application and click on I-24 News Radio to subscribe.
Welcome to Mitch. Nice to meet you. המנה שאנחנו מגישים במיץ'
The flagship dish we serve here is called showplate. The centerpiece of the dish is mitite, also known as mitch or Romanian kebab, served with homemade salads and fries. In Romania, mitite is mostly identified as street food, eaten with bread, mustard, and mujde, our traditional garlic paste. The use of fresh, high-quality beef is essential, with the right percentage of fat. The grinding process is important as well, alongside delicate seasoning. I'm a daughter to a Romanian mother and a Polish father. I grew up eating Eastern European cuisine, and I've been cooking it for most of my life. At a certain point, I realized Romanian restaurants in Israel are disappearing. The younger generation doesn't necessarily know what mitite is. That's when I decided to open my own place in the Carmel Market in central Tel Aviv. Today, I work here with my daughter, and one of my goals is bringing mitite back to the people, to the street. Traditional mitite might be a bit tough to eat, mainly because it's full of garlic. I made some minor changes in the recipe to make it more suitable for the local taste. There's also an option of eating it with homemade tahini, which is very light so it doesn't take over the flavors of the mitite. Part of what I'm doing here is keeping Romanian cuisine alive. One of the biggest communities in Israel is Romanian, and I think this cuisine deserves to be in the spotlight.
וכולם יכירו אותו.
Zoom in, past the sound bites and beyond the numbers. Zoom in, between the people and into the Middle East conflict. I'm Jeff Smith. Together, we'll zoom in Sunday through Thursday nights, only on I-24 News.
In 2022, I-24 News continues to grow with you.
Join the friends of I-24 News and enjoy exclusive benefits, a welcome gift, special offers, and invitations to special events organized by the channel. Also included is a subscription to our live and replay services. Don't wait any longer and join the friends of I-24 News. More information on www.i24news.tv.
for staying with us. All right, let's now move back to the situation with Russia and Ukraine, with major celebrations in rebel-held areas, with Russian separatists letting off fireworks and waving flags after President Putin signed decrees recognizing the independence of the regions. Well, the reaction from Kyiv followed immediately, with President Zelensky stressing it was a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Well, the Ukrainian president also says this move means the country could unilaterally withdraw from the Minsk agreements, a peace pact between Kyiv and the separatist republics hammered out back in 2014. Well, I24 News spoke with Rodion Mironoshnik, who is the foreign policy advisor to the head of the now newly independent, according to Russia, Luhansk People's Republic, on why they greeted Moscow's decision and what they expect from Kyiv in the near future.
According to the UN Commissioner for Human Rights, around 14,000 people died during the conflict. 9,000 are people killed by Ukraine. Casualties we got from the Ukrainian nationalist military groups, who have been here since spring 2014. We have a lot of facts that can be called extermination, which includes economic blockade, desire to cut us off from food, energy, water, connections, heating. All this was done by Ukraine. In mass graves, we found hundreds of people killed as a result of shelling. And in separate graves, we found victims of non-military illegal executions. These actions were carried out by groups created and sent by Ukraine. Mass detention and imprisonment, torture and killing. We have this data and statistics. Some documents have been sent to the investigative committee of the Russian Federation and international courts. We have all the confirmation. Another confirmation is the despotic regime that practices political persecution. According to open data, more than 3,000 people are now in detention in Ukraine, accused of preparing a referendum on our territories, or so-called sponsorship of terrorism. Any contacts with the economies of our republics is considered terrorism. For example, money transferred to our parents. Any financial manipulations are considered sponsorship of terrorism. So mass detention of people with different political views is popular in Ukraine. And these people are now in detention centers. We need to free them. There are more facts we are ready to show to the courts in the near future. I strongly believe the Ukrainian authorities have not lost their minds, and they will be able to understand that the balance of power has changed, and they will not issue commands to attack, as it will lead to a lot of casualties and bloodshed. I think they have not lost their minds yet. The actions may lead to irreparable consequences. The republics will be protected. The situation has drastically changed for Ukraine. They should review their approach and leave their revenge plans.
Well, this is a controversial Nord Stream 2 pipeline project to deliver natural gas from Russia to Germany has been put on hold indefinitely in light of Russia moving into Ukraine. The German Chancellor making this announcement.
I have asked the German Economy Ministry today to withdraw the report on the analysis of energy supply guarantees from the relevant German regulator. It sounds technical, but it's the required procedure so that there can be no certification of the pipeline now. Without this certification, Nord Stream 2 can't become operational.
Right, work on the $11 billion undersea project wrapped up last September and has not begun operating yet, with the move set to seriously hurt European consumers who are also grappling with high energy prices. So the question remains as to who it will hurt the most, Russia or Germany. And for more, let's bring in Joel Shalit, who is the editor-in-chief of The Battleground. Look, Joel, thanks for coming on. We've seen a lot of reluctance in the past to compromise this pipeline. Tell me, what has changed?
The Germans have been planning to freeze the Nord Stream 2 project for a while now. The Russians finally gave them a pretext to do that. The German strategy in dealing with Russian aggression on the Ukraine border has been directed at taking initiatives like this. The Germans have been slow at getting around to it, but there was no way the government would have escaped major criticism if it didn't take action like this. It's simply been held back as a strategic measure until the last possible minute, and they finally did it.
And Joel, tell me, what kind of reactions are we hearing from consumers there in Germany, given the fact that they are already shelling out huge amounts of money for gas?
Well, the Russians have been raising prices all along. I mean, the Russians have been waging a subtle war against European energy consumers for the last few months as part of a campaign of pressure around the Ukraine issue using gas prices. And gas supplies are at an all-time low in Gazprom-owned storage facilities in Germany. So I think that on the part of average German energy consumers, they get this. They get that the prices that they're having to contend with right now and that they've had to contend with since last summer are a consequence of a buildup towards a war and not a consequence of anything else. And I think that there's slowly but surely resentment growing against Russia in Germany that had not been there before. One of the reasons Scholz has not taken more serious action against the Russians until now is because German public opinion has been very divided on what to do about the Russians. And so that's prevented him from being as outspoken as Biden, for example.
And Joel, tell me, does this mean that it's off for good, or could it in fact just be a temporary measure? It could leave Germany potentially open to a number of lawsuits, given there are many players involved here.
We have to remember the Greens are a part of this government, and the Green Party wants to see a transition away from energy sources like gas. The natural gas phenomenon in Germany has been increasingly relied on as a substitute for coal, which is in the process of being phased out, and being phased out rather quickly. It's never been a favored energy solution. And so, I think that over the long term, this natural gas crisis will play out well for what the Germans call the Energiewende, or the energy transition towards sustainable energy sources like wind-powered energy and solar energy, which is something that is a big part of this government's program. This entire mess in some ways figures well into this government's energy planning for the future.
And tell me, do we know if the German government is planning any more sanctions there?
With the Germans, this is the big sanction, gesture that they felt that they could undertake individually and not through the EU. Tonight, the European Commission announced a whole new set of sanctions being directed at the Russians as a consequence of last night's declarations over the independence of these former Ukrainian areas now occupied by the Russian military. And so I think the Germans prefer to say, the EU speaks for us on most of these sanctions issues.
Well, Joel Shalit there, it's always great to get your take on things. Thanks for coming on, and have a really good night. See you later.
It's great being on the show.
All right, we're taking you out for a short break, but when we come back, a major announcement regarding abortion in Colombia. Where can we expect this year's Champions League final to take place, with news in that Russia may be stripped of holding the event? We'll have both those stories and plenty more coming right up here on Global Eye. Don't go anywhere.
Esta semana en News 24, Estados Unidos y Rusia chocan por Ucrania en un flashback que nos devuelve a la Guerra Fría. Israel Startup Nation, de Israel al mundo. La Autoridad Nacional de Innovación promueve iniciativas y alianzas tecnológicas con América Latina. Y Ronnie Majlis, con su emprendimiento Ticuno, potencia los proyectos de innovación israelí. News 24, el magazine semanal en español de i24 News.
Strictly Security, your weekly look into security, intelligence, and strategic affairs. Our team brings the latest on the major international conflicts, analysis of the major security issues right here in the Middle East and around the globe. Join us for a close look at innovative military technology and get up to speed with what's happening in cyberspace. Saturdays, only on i24 News.
The Middle East. I24 News is a witness. Our journalists live and breathe there every day. Get all the latest global news from our studios in Tel Aviv, New York, Washington, and Paris. Anytime, anywhere. Download the i24 News app, available on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple, and Google stores. I24 News, see beyond.
Welcome back. Let's now go to some sports news. And Russia is at risk of being stripped of hosting the Champions League final in St. Petersburg amid the crisis with Ukraine. UEFA is now in talks over the move, with the UK upping its rhetoric against Russia after slapping sanctions on Moscow, calling on the football body to move the final immediately.
As I said earlier on, I think it inconceivable that major international football tournaments can take place in Russia after, as I say, the invasion of a sovereign country.
And sports journalist from Baba Gol, Uri Levy, joins me here in studio. Good evening. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Tell me, you know, the final was moved last minute last year. What can we expect here? Are we hearing anything from UEFA there?
Yeah, UEFA just a few hours ago said that they are monitoring the situation and they will act accordingly with any developments, which is a little bit vague, but it's also clear that the current situation is going in, you know, in the border between Russia and Ukraine, and everything in this conflict is impacting football directly. And it's not only the UEFA Champions League final that we are talking here. We are talking about the up-and-coming World Cup qualifiers playoffs that Russia's supposed to play Poland in the end of March. You know, we open another Pandora box for this, you know, foreign affairs of Russia in the region. And basically, UEFA will wait now to see what the UK will decide, what the other European Union countries will decide, and will try to act the best, because they are in a big troubles. As one of the main sponsors of UEFA are Gazprom, which are owned basically by Roman Abramovich, a Russian billionaire indirectly, and it's highly connected to Russian state-funded gas pipeline. So there is a high risk for change and shifts in venue, but also it will cause a very big, I would say, consequences financially, because Russia is part of UEFA. Russia is part of the football community in Europe, as well as Ukraine. So, you know, it's just the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg, what we are seeing today.
And, you know, if this does happen, how much could we see it sort of interrupting the preparations of these teams, or weakening the final even?
Yeah, look, right now there is one Russian club competing in the European competitions, and it's St. Petersburg, should go to Spain soon to play against Betis. I don't know how it will impact them, but you know, only from the past few hours, Manchester United was supposed to fly to Madrid to play tomorrow against Atletico Madrid in the UEFA Champions League.
Yeah.
They should have done it with Aeroflot, their sponsor. They now cancelled it. They're looking for a new flight company. So while I'm saying it's only the beginning, I'm open to any weird development from this story, because we are seeing today that this is serious. It's not a joke. You know, people are dying there, and things are moving, and there are military movements there that will impact football and sports.
What's Russia got to say?
Well, look, Russia is keeping the line as they did in the past week. They are not commenting regarding moving the final yet. But you know, I believe that if they will react when in the I would say in the coming hours or the coming days, they will keep the line as being there is nothing basically. Where it's not something that takes place at the current time. So we'll wait and see as well. But also for them, you know, they will find a way to get out, you know, and leave the scene proud and strong as they're doing in the media in the past week.
And already tell me, you know, can we expect any further sanctions against Moscow in the wider sporting arena?
Might be. You know, we've just seen in the past few years, even if it wasn't related to this conflict that is basically going from 2014, you know, already Ukrainian teams had to move from Donetsk and Luhansk to play in cities like Kyiv and Lviv and everything, but also Russian athletes competing under the flag of the Olympic Russian Committee and not Russia as a country. So I believe if the conflict will deepen, so also all the consequences and implications on Russia in sports will also increase.
What a mess, to say the very least. Uri Levy, it's always good to get you in. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, we're moving on to Latin America. These are today's most trending stories. Well, a huge statue, which was originally from Easter Island, is on its way back home from Santiago, where it was kept since the 19th century. Well, the iconic Moai figure was carved centuries ago by the island's inhabitants, bringing fame and UNESCO World Heritage Site status. The Easter Island community holding a special celebration to mark the statue's homecoming, with journey to take around 5 days. Anger in Cuba after Costa Rica tightened visa requirements, requiring Cubans to obtain a transit visa in order to travel through the Central American nation on their way to Nicaragua. Well, Cubans holding a demonstration outside Costa Rica's embassy in Havana, with airfares skyrocketing since the announcement, with flights costing as much as $3,500, which is several times the average annual salary in Cuba. No comment yet from Costa Rica, but it's defended its decision in the past, saying the move is aimed at assuring orderly and dignified migration. A massive step for Colombia, with the Constitutional Court there announcing that it's decriminalised abortions in the first 24 weeks of pregnancy. Well, since 2006, abortions have only been allowed in cases of rape or if the mother's life is at risk, with the new rules meaning that a woman cannot be prosecuted if she chooses to terminate a pregnancy in that time frame. Well, the ruling is being applauded by pro-choice groups who say that 90% of abortions that happened before this announcement were clandestine, majorly risking the health of women. All right, let's now bring Megan Janetsky, who is a freelance correspondent, joining us from Colombia. Megan, nice to see you. What a breakthrough decision in such a conservative country. What prompted it?
You know, I think Colombia has been changing over the past years. We've seen the court considering decisions like this, you know, in recent years, but it's never really gone anywhere, and you've seen it gain more and more traction over time. And part of that is due to like really heavy feminist movements, not just in Colombia, but, you know, in Argentina, Mexico, Chile. And yeah, it was just a general, you know, gradual shift in the country, I think.
90% of abortions before this were performed in so-called backyard setups, you know, really risking the lives of these women. what are some of the reactions that we're hearing following the announcement?
Yeah, so I mean, Colombia, the big thing is like a massive divide between richer people in Bogota and in big city centers and rural areas, and access to abortion is often, divided down the lines of privilege. So what you're seeing is just a massive celebration of women's rights, not just in Bogota, because, previously you had a more lenient reading of it in like liberal hubs of the previous statutes, but really in these areas where Catholicism and conservatism and like sexism is so strong in rural Colombia. So it's really just a celebration of like life of women that would normally have to go through probably very intense and dangerous clandestine abortion procedures.
And Megan, let's now talk about the argument against it. Given that, autonomy over one's body is a fundamental human right.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are plenty of actors, especially in Colombia, because it's so Catholic, arguing against it, saying the same things you see in the US and the UK and in a lot of other countries, and kind of you see that same sentiment, people saying that this is costing the lives of fetuses and stuff like that. But it's mostly by the really farther conservative facet of the country. I think a lot of like the Colombian mindset has really shifted, and a lot of people, the majority of the country now supports, more flexible abortion laws.
And, given that, how likely, in your opinion, is it that we may see other Latin American nations now follow suit?
No, I mean, I think it's very likely. You have Mexico and Argentina's decision to, add to this precedent. And then you see other countries like Chile heavily considering, changes in their statutes. Ecuador just recently loosened up their statutes. They're still quite strict. But you are seeing, a general shift and change in this region that for a really long time has been quite a conservative stronghold.
Megan Janetsky there, we really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Of course.
And we're moving on to Asia. What's the buzz? These are today's most trending stories. Well, Hong Kong is stepping up its fight against COVID, ordering all residents to be tested as the city tries to contain a mass outbreak. With dire warnings, infections could rise dramatically within weeks if restrictions are not tightened. Well, healthcare workers say hospitals are completely overwhelmed, with shocking scenes emerging of elderly people left outside facilities on gurneys, with thousands of new cases reported every day. India is stepping in to help alleviate the growing food shortage in Afghanistan, sending tons of wheat on some 50 trucks after striking a deal with neighbouring rival Pakistan to allow vehicles through. Well, it comes as the UN is warning that millions of people are on the brink of starvation there, with over half the population facing extreme hunger, with the country's economy on the brink of collapse since Taliban took over back in August last year. Well, it was a howling success for a group that studies wolves. CNN's Gian Muniz reports on the perfect wolf call captured on camera.
It's what wolves are most famous for, but this had researchers howling with delight. In the words of University of Minnesota professor Joe Bump,
"Oh, it's like winning the howling lottery."
The Voyageurs Wolf Project sets out hundreds of trail cameras in Voyageurs National Park in northern Minnesota. And talk about the right place at the right time. Wolf number 94 not only howled once, he switched directions and howled twice. There's a myth about wolves.
That's what wolves do. We howl at the moon. Ow!
Actually, experts say they howl to communicate with each other, to tell their own pack members where they are, or warn away members of other packs. Fans love it when the Voyageurs Wolf Project posts images from its trail cams of pups exiting the wolf den or mom carrying food home to the kids. They asked viewers to guess what's for dinner.
Oh, what was it? Did you have a guess?
Well, everyone was saying beaver, so I'm going with beaver.
You're correct.
Apparently, all that howling takes a toll. The wolf flopped down. Watch those eerie eyes as the eyelids droop and the wolf naps. The call of the wild is also the call of the sleepy. Jeannie Moose, CNN, New York.
Aren't they beautiful? Well, that is all for today here on Global Eye, but feel free to catch up on the show on Facebook or on i24news.tv. We will, of course, be seeing you again tomorrow, but for now, good night.